All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. You're in the right place. This is our monthly MBAssist webinar. We're really going in and doing a little bit of a product showcase, thinking about how MBAssist can save you time as an administrator, but also strengthen staff support across your organization. So we'll be diving in, but today's a special day because we have a special guest, Brian Carlson, the tech director of Jayhawk USD 346. Also a great participant in the Kansas Power School user group, where I've had the pleasure of going and meeting with before. Is going to be joining, talking a little bit about his experience thus far with MBAssist. So, Brian, really appreciate you joining us today, sir.
Yeah, you bet. No problem.
And of course, we have Sherry Schultes, local MBA celebrity, here to kind of go through and show us a little bit of a live walkthrough of what MBAssist looks like in from a user perspective. And then I'm Sam Sale. I'm your marketing guy here at MBA, and excited to moderate and help kind of go through the questions and things like that today. Just a few shopkeeping logistical things I always like to highlight. First of all, we are recording. So if principal walks by, superintendent walks by, whomever, they need to have a word with you. Have no fear. We're recording. We'll be sending this to you in the next day or so. Also encourage you, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Don't wait till the end. Put them right into the Q&A right there. And we'll get to just as many questions as we can as we are going through the webinar as well at the end when we have that open Q&A time. So certainly let us know what you're thinking. And of course, if we by some chance don't answer your question, we're not ignoring you. We'll be following up with everybody and having those one-on-one conversations to explore if this is the right choice for your school, for your district, for your organization, to really just increase staff support and keep folks happy. Now, I do always like to highlight, if you're maybe new to your district, and this is maybe your first or second webinar with MBA, just like to let you know who we are. We're Marcia Brenner Associates. We've been around for over 40 years. A lot of unmatched expertise. A lot of us came from school districts previously. We really drive with a relationship first approach. We listen and then go and help provide solutions that are going to help you get the most out of your technology and your software. And being around 40 years, you kind of have to be proven. So we've got proven results. Our stuff works and really helps you with teacher support, student support, parents, administrators, saves time, and really elevates the floor of educational excellence. And so we really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today. And one of the big things that we hear and that we then went out and did something about was, hey, how can we better support our staff? And staff support really does matter. There's lots of, as a former educator, former teacher, of course, being supported helps you feel supported and helps you be better at your job. But I always like to highlight some third-party validation studies, things like that. Just when educators are supported, well, it's linked to student outcomes. Better supported teachers have students who have better outcomes, better instructional quality, better classroom experience. That's the way it should be. However, a lot of teachers report that they just got a lot of work-related stress. I mean, this was not a COVID thing. This was back in 2024. 84% of teachers feel that stress and could use additional support. And when they don't get it, sometimes they look elsewhere. 1 in 5 teachers even are considering leaving not just their school, but the entire profession in the next few years. And so how can we, help those teachers get more support and stay? And then if it is time for them to, if they do want to retire or go somewhere else, then that's fine. And you have new hires. How can we help them get onboarded once they're on their team? If you're a third grade teacher or a special education teacher, how can we set you up with the resources that you need without you having to, email someone and wait for 5-10 minutes or hours or multiple days until you get an answer back? And for that poor answering person, how can we help them not answer the same question over and over and over? And so that's exactly what MBAssist does, which is what we're going to be looking at today. It's always on, so 24/7. As folks have questions, can go in and get their answers, and it's pulling directly from what your approved policies, your handbooks, your internal resources. You get to really control that. Gives you that self-service support for staff, so you're getting less daily interruptions as a leader, less time saying, hey, how many PTO days left do I have? Or, hey, when's our next holiday, et cetera, et cetera. And this is going to be able to really centralize a lot of your approved resources, as mentioned, documents, Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, videos, things like that, all in one place. And so that way your staff are getting consistent support that saves some time. the on-demand access to those accurate answers are going to make sure that they're getting those accurate answers, and it's not pulling from, oh, that's from 3 years ago, that's from 6 years ago, what's that still doing out there? But really allows you to make sure that the most up-to-date information is all there. And of course, there's the ability to specialize by department, by building, by team, literacy teachers, intervention specialists, whatever those groups of individuals that need to have that specialized support for themselves, they can get that. So that's enough to just the overview of what we're going to be looking at today. But what I really want to dive into is a conversation with Brian. So Brian, I know we chatted a little bit before, but I'd love to get you just to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your district, your role in Kansas, and then we'll dive in and chat a little bit about MBAssist.
Well, thanks, Sam. I'm Brian Carlson. I'm the Director of Technology at Jayhawk USD 346 here in Kansas. We're a small district. We've got about 550 kids, students K through 12. We're about roughly an hour from south of the Kansas City metro area. I always give people a hard time here when they say they go to the city. They hardly ever get past the suburbs, but we're just south of Kansas City. I've been in education. I don't know. I can't even keep track now. It's 33 years, I think. I've been in this role for a year and a half. Prior to that, I was integration specialist here in Jayhawk for 12 years. So I've been around. I've been a power school admin for 21 years, I think it's been, since 2005. And got familiar with a lot of the MBA plugins. And this came about, and it had some areas that I think it's going to be beneficial for us, but we're just kind of getting started with that at the moment. So uh, keep on, kind of let them know where we were at in our process. When it first came up in the spring as being introduced, we thought there might be some potential. So I was talking to our board clerk, and we were discussing various ways we might be able to utilize it even in our small district. And
Mhm.
for me, the selling point was in the discussion with our board clerk when we started talking about putting our board policies into what you call an assistant, and that being able to be accessed by our superintendent, our board clerk, and a couple of the other board office personnel. For me, that was pretty much the selling point right there for it,
Mhm.
because the board policy information we have is huge, and we're small. So I can't imagine what some of the other districts might have. But for our board clerk or superintendent to be able to ask a question against our board policy and get feedback or a response to that, the rest of it's just, I think, icing on the top of the cake, so to speak, because we have an HR section we're setting up for those common HR questions and so forth. But down the road, we've looked at, maybe even a technology section, different curriculum areas. It just kind of will spread from there, I think. But our two main focuses right now is an HR section and our board policy for our board office personnel.
Perfect. And were there any like big challenges, especially with the HR piece, challenges that you were experiencing before, like just taking too much time or kind of conflicting resources out there that you're really thinking that this is going to help eliminate?
Well, for our district, since we're so small, our HR department is our board clerk. She's the only one. So she also handles all the other duties that she has. So whenever somebody's calling or emailing or catching her on the phone or in off duty or whatever with some sort of question about insurance or any of those things, it's taking away from what she was doing in another area. We always give her a hard time about, hang up the phone, don't answer it when you're working on payroll,
Yeah.
but that was a big area of benefit, that if this could help her just not have the distractions on her other duties, and then it would be very, very beneficial.
100%. Yeah, payroll is kind of important. You don't want to miss a zero or add an extra zero. So that's one not to have those distractions on. Um, So, Brian, talk to me a little bit about kind of the auditing process. You're preparing to roll it out to folks to help with HR, with board. Like, what's the process in terms of like getting the right documents in there and making sure that the three-year old version is not part of it? Like, what's that process been like to kind of make sure that what you're feeding it is going to be used in those assistants?
That's a good point. That's something that I've been kind of thinking of how we're going to adjust and how we go forward with it. But right now on our rollout, the board policy, the assistant for the board information is only accessible as a manager by our board clerk and myself.
Mhm.
She has the data. I can help her. But we just added our superintendent and our other board personnel to it last week so that they can start working on it. And just like everybody else, administrators are coming back, secretaries are coming back. We had our admin meeting last week. So at our admin meeting, I brought on board all of our principals and counselors, and they're now accessing the HR part. So I'm going to roll over. I wanted them to kind of get familiar with that from a user perspective. And then I'll set the principals up on the um, another one I think we're going to add is an administrative assistant, now that I think about it. And that one will have the information for administrators, for our principals. Now, it may be some overlap. We may have handbooks in more than one place,
Mhm.
but our thought was that if we had an assistant geared just for our principals and our administrators, they could go to that area for the resource information, and that data would be maintained by themselves. They could post that information. Now, as far as the uh, 3 years down the road is an excellent point. It's something we're going to have to address. That's always my concern. If I have too many people putting content in there, there's nobody in there to clean the content up over time. So fortunately for us, it's only 3 or 4 people that would be in that area. So if we keep uh, well, I don't want to say control so much as if we keep it to a minimal amount of people that can contribute, then we can update that information. So I forgot that we had just added a new admin piece for one of our assistants. So our principals would have a resource.
Yep. No, and I think you raise a great point. Like, kind of, as you roll it out, who feeds it, and making sure that you're kind of minimizing that really helps you make sure that all of a sudden it just doesn't become an area where you just throw everything. Um, and then I think you make a great point as well too, like having the idea like, oh, well, for our administrative assistants, they could use one. I think that's kind of the potential of MBAssist is like there's always going to be a new group. Like, hey, we've got uh, athletic coaches. They have got to be first aid
Mhm.
certified, and there's a lot of resources they could go in and set those folks up. I know we had a lot of documents that at the end of the day just got stuck in the bottom of the duffel bag and maybe never looked at, and would have been a lot nicer if you could have just gone in and gotten access to them that way. Um,
Oh
you
yeah,
really
yeah.
you really covered a lot of my topics on the challenges and kind of what you're thinking about. Brian, before we jump to Sherry, I'll ask you one more question. What advice do you have? We have had, I think, over 50 to 100 people sign up for this webinar, or someone are going to watch on the recording. If they're, 4 or 5 months behind where you all are right now in terms of staff support, what do you wish you would have known going into this? And any wisdom or advice you can kind of impart for folks that may be following in your footsteps before long?
Well, it wasn't so much of what to expect or an anticipation of, because really didn't know exactly what we were getting into or dealing with, but the implementation of it in terms of this learning how to set things up and organizing that has been amazingly simple. I mean, the implementation call was 30 minutes, and I think probably 15 of it was just finalizing ideas of how to do it after we'd already gone through learned how to manipulate things and administrate and do all those things. I would say for us, and it's still a challenge, we're a smaller district. So I can imagine at a bigger district, it'll be a little different. But one of the things that I can think of is we can create so many assistants, making sure that the assistants we create are not overdone. You mentioned one, for example, like, our coaches would need something. Well, our coaches, a lot of them are staff. Do I need to gauge whether or not I make another one for the athletics versus something that I've already got, and we kind of combine them in one spot? So it's a constant study of, all right, I'm going to make another one. Am I making too many?
Mhm.
So because you don't overlap in your assistants, which I think is fine. It kind of gears the chat bot to, or the chat questions specifically to the topic at hand, I think it helps the organizational structure a lot better. But I think it would be a lot worse if, okay, we were just going to throw everything into one spot. Well, then it becomes a lot harder to maintain that information as time goes by. But we're small. If we have too many spots, that might be a more of a problem as well.
Mhm.
So I would recommend anybody that's going in, start out small, start out with an area, and then proceed from there. It'll grow. You're going to find another area that, well, we already did last week when we thought about our principals when they came back. You know, so it's easy to get started. Start simple, and then just build from there.
No, I love that approach, and yeah, I think, yeah, what's the highest priorities? Is it,
Hmm.
or is it principles, and for example, and then they can kind of, there's going to be feedback and additional asks, but I think, yeah, not trying to boil the ocean, so to speak, is going to be important. To start with those big steps. And the nice thing is, I found it to be really, when I first learned about MBAssist, was really impressed with that simplicity of setting it up, because you and I were talking about this the other day. It's not a plugin. It doesn't like, oh well, we need to
Yeah, exactly.
upgrade the 26.7 to in order for it. Nope, it works really. We had a large group of schools that use a lot of different systems, and they were like, well, would
Yeah,
this even work for us? Yes, because it's not this specific plugin.
yeah. So and you mentioned our Power School. I'm on our Power School, our state users board. I'm on our board, and we've just adopted MB Assist to help facilitate our transition in the state to our new state reporting system. So that's a new area that it's a different group I'm involved with, but we're going to use MBA Assist to provide an area for uh, people that come to our workshops to be able to
Mhm.
access information, ask questions against the stuff that they saw at the conferences that we hold.
No, no, I know that I know the exact switch. I worked with some folks that were doing it in Arizona and Tennessee as well, and yeah, I think anything you can do to remove the friction there helps it go a lot better. So
Oh,
certainly
yeah.
wish y'all luck, and I'm excited to have MB Assist hopefully be one of those pieces that helps you. So well,
Thank
Brian, don't
you.
go anywhere, because I'm gonna. Yeah, there might be some questions for you here at the end if you're able to stick around for a little bit. But I want to kind of transition now, because we've been talking about these assistants and what that can be set up. So I really want to give Sherry the opportunity to jump in and show us. Okay, what does this look like from from the perspective of the end user? So Brian, thanks again, and I think Sherry, I'll hand the ball to you, ma'am, and you might be on mute.
Okay.
Yep, there you are.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, whichever time zone you're in. There is a poll question on the screen that I've just added. If you could participate in our poll, we are interested to hear. You've heard from Brian. Brian, we appreciate you being here today and sharing your experience with MBAssist. We're looking for what are the topics that you receive the most questions for? On the screen right now, you're seeing our MBAssist. It is an honor to be here today to talk to you about our MBAssist and share with you a brand new tool to assist you with your staff support. A special thanks to our developers for creating this tool. So again, Sam already covered what is the MBAssist. It is a closed AI assistant that answers questions from your district policies, handbooks, and guidelines, and even trainings can be added. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Again, thank you for submitting your answers. It looks like professional development is one of the highest items that people are getting asked questions, as well as technology questions. And then we're seeing some handbook type questions. So great that you're thinking about how the MBAssist could be used for your district. So let's take a look at our MBAssist. I'll go ahead and share those poll results with you. You can go ahead and close that whenever you'd like. But let's take a look at MBAssist. So on the screen, we're seeing MBAssist from the end user. So as an end user for MBAssist, I have been given access to 3 different assistants: an HR assistant, a special services, and then a professional development assistant. So as I work with the MBAssist for the HR assistant, on the screen, we're notice we have the opportunity to place commonly asked questions on a dashboard, but now users can simply ask a question on something specific. So I'm a brand new hire to the district. I've attended training sessions on our policies. However, right now it's a couple months into school and I have a bereavement in my family. I have a death in my family. So I'm going to ask MBAssist, what is the bereavement policy? So again, the MBAssist is looking at the documents. You are training the MBAssist, this AI. It's a closed system. You're training it on your policies. So this is the policy from the district that is set up. So here's our bereavement policy. The MBAssist has answered the question for me, but notice for the MBAssist, it also shares with us the source documents in which we find the information. So as I come to the source document, I can actually click on the source document and see the source. So here's our district policy for bereavement. I can also ask additional questions. So if I need an extension for my bereavement, what would that look like? So I can ask that same question. It knows that I'm in a bereavement chat with it, and it looks like I did not get, we'll answer it again, ask it again. Um, it's looking through the resources, finding the information, and it will bring back a response for this extension. So this is how we get an extension based on our district documents. Again, it shows the handbook in which the information is provided. So I've asked that question and received an answer very quickly. I didn't have to email a staff member. Sometimes we travel for districts and that traveling occurs again after our training and implementation. But maybe we need to know, how can I submit expense reports? So again, there is no outside source content that it's looking through. It's staying right within your environment that you have trained it by your district policies. And now it's sharing with you how to submit your expenses. So a very quick way to have policy answered questions, all with the MBAssist. So several of you mentioned that professional development would be a helpful way to use MBAssist to be able to ask questions. So we've recently had a speaker come into our district and he talked about leadership. So I want to learn more about that leadership. And I'm going to ask it, what are the 7 steps of leadership? So as I ask the MBAssist, what were the 7 steps of leadership? The MBAssist is actually referring to a video that was uploaded, a recording that was uploaded. So as it finds the resources to find those 7 steps of leadership, it's also going to provide us with the source document, and that source document is a recording. So this leadership was recorded, and if I'm looking for part 1, it'll go right to part 1 in the video, and notice that it is timestamped. So saving your district lots of time here. If we do want to ask it to display the information in a different language, um, I'm just going to say in Spanish, and it will give me those 7 steps to leadership, but it will translate it to Spanish. Now, all of my source documents are in English. They are not in Spanish. However, it is translating to the staff member's native language and responding in that native language. So again, all of the source documents uploaded have been uploaded in English as well as that video, and it will respond to this question and put it into Spanish. So a very helpful tool. Again, you're customizing some of the verbiage that it's going to be using, as well as providing it with the document sources that can be referred to. So let's take a look at MBAssist from the admin portal. So Brian mentioned there are admin users as well as managers, and then there are users, end users that are going to be asking questions. So a manager might help us with uploading documents, keeping our documents up to date. And the owner or the admin user would be able to create and manage users, share invite links, as well as add information in or source documents. So for our HR assistant, we can manage users. We can go ahead and add users. I can add a whole group of emails here, comma separated, assign them to assistants. Which assistant will they have access to, and what is their role for that assistant? As the user receives an email from MBAssist, they will be asked to authenticate and then re-authenticate, provide a password, re-authenticate, and then they would have access to answer any of the questions. In this user management area, I can delete users. I can switch users to a different assistant, but I'm controlling my users and who has access to which assistant. So notice on our admin side, we have multiple assistants. I have a learning resources assistant. I have a training assistant, a special services assistant, a technology assistant, a finance, and then a professional development assistant. If I do want to add another assistant, it's very simple to add an assistant. I can add that assistant or I can delete the assistant, but I'm creating the different assistants for the users to access and inviting users. We also have the ability to share invite links. If you'd prefer to invite your users with invite links, you could do that as well. There is a dark theme or a light theme to the MBAssist, whichever you prefer. And then customization for the MBAssist. So we know it's important that the MBAssist looks like your district. So you have the opportunity to name each assistant as well as provide your brand or logo for the assistant. So perhaps you'd like to put your school specific logo in, and you can do that with the MBAssist. So we're going to come back to our HR assistant. Our HR assistant has a chat dashboard created. So as we came in as a user for the MBAssist, we looked at specific questions that were prompting us. So this is your ability to set up those commonly asked questions to prompt your users. So notice I have 6 different questions. I can put a description in as well as our header. But here's your negative answer. So MBAssist will only provide information answers to documents that you have trained it for. So if you are asking a question that is not trained for, you might get a negative response, such as who is Elvis? If I ask this MBAssist who Elvis is, we have not uploaded any documentation that shares with the MBAssist who Elvis is. So you're going to get a negative response. So your negative response could be a point or direction. And then we have response instructions. So similar to other AIs, you're describing how you would like this format to be shared with your users. So you can be sassy if you'd like, but we are using a professional response for our MBAssist. Also, we have chat integrations. Chat integrations allows you to create a chat bot. Platforms that we connected to include Zoho Click, Teams, Google Chat, and Slack. So an example of a chat bot in use for MBA is we have a chat bot that has been created by one of our developers, and it is connected to some documents for PowerSchool, such as data access tags. And so on our Click channel, instead of coming to MBAssist, we chat with our Zoho Click chatbot and ask questions. And I can ask those questions. So again, that's creating a chatbot. Our MBAssist also has the ability to integrate with and connect to messaging platforms. We can embed integrations inside your own digital properties with full and administrative control. So this could be a two-facing surface, or from one configuration, you could have a floating widget on your web page and embed the channel, or you can have a full shareable link. But you can integrate with our MBAssist. I am going to come back over to our assist and our our dashboard for the assistant. We can upload files. With those files we can also connect to a OneDrive or a source document. So OneDrive would allow us to connect to a Google Drive, a OneDrive, or a SharePoint. So that could be an opportunity for you to organize all of your specific data into one location. As you connect the MBAssist will reference information from your Google Drive. As you connect a Google Drive, I'm going to come up to our training Google Drive here. As we connect our Google Drive, once it's connected, if you do update your information, some of the documents within your Google Drive or SharePoint file, you can simply refresh to give MBAssist your latest documentation. As we upload files, there are different types of files we can upload. So for my learning resources, one of the commonly asked questions during the start of the year is weighting grades in PowerTeacher Pro. So I'm going to upload a document for MBAssist that's going to allow the MBAssist to have our specific district regulations on how to set up the gradebook in PowerTeacher Pro. I clicked away a little too fast, so I'm going to come back to the screen, but these are the types of files that you can upload into your MBAssist. Notice you have your MP4, so you have video files, so all of your professional development documentation, if you're recording it or have PowerPoints, you can add that information in. Newly added to MBAssist is the ability to control your resources. So for our grading for PowerTeacher Pro, perhaps I don't want to share the source document with them. I only want to share the name of the source document. You do have the option to control. So again, as we opened up that source document that had our bereavement policy in it, it opened onto another page. But if we do not want our users to have access to that policy, we can limit the access. We can have the page numbers, but they're not clickable. Or we can go ahead and use the full source default so I can share that document. But again, you have the ability to control the files that you are uploading. So now I have a weighting grades, our specific policy for the district, and I can ask questions. You always have the opportunity on the admin side to ask questions so that you can see how your MBAssist is working for you. But we're going to take a look at the power of MBAssist. So I have a special services MBAssist set up. The special services houses information for students. So I am a behavior teacher at this point, and I want to ask, what are some behavior strategies for a student with autism? So it's looking for the documentation that has been provided, finding some of the strategies that we as a district have decided that we will be using for students with autism. As it brings back the resources, it will note the source document in which the information has been provided from. And you can see that here are some of the different options that we do or have for students who are in a behavior classroom with autism. So I noticed one of the options is a good behavior game. I want to know a little bit more about that good behavior game. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the MBAssist to explain the good behavior game. So again, we have source documents that explains what the good behavior game is. It's not looking outside of your policy statements or your resources. It is a closed AI system trained in what you want it to have knowledge to. So here is an example of the good behavior game. So now I would like it to create a letter for parents. So I've given it a sample letter, but notice it's staying right within the same chat about resources here for behavior students with autism. So now create a letter, a sample letter for me, sharing with the parent that your student or child will be participating in the good behavior game. And so again, it's looking at the resources, creating a sample letter that can be used. And so now we have a sample letter based on the documents. Again, this is the document provided, and I can go right to the page on which the resource was located that it found the answer. So a very powerful tool that you train in your own district policies, district specific trainings, however you would like to use the MBAssist. So with MBAssist, schools can deliver on-demand policy accurate support repetitive staff questions through consistent self-service, and securely tailor access by the role, department, or building, ensuring ability to centralize trusted information, empower staff with confident answers, and protect sensitive data for years to come. At this time, Sam, I'll stop and see if there's any questions that you or Brian would like to answer.
Yeah, no, that was I always learn something new, Sherry. When I look back and think about because I was a coach and I was a brand new teacher and I was a foreign language teacher and history, and it would have been so great to have that level of personalized support. I guess the first question, Sherry, is for you. I was just occurred to me, what does MB Assist and my 16-year-old daughter have in common?
They're looking for the right answer or what
You
you
are
want to happen at the correct response. So,
yes, yes, and neither of them knows anything about Elvis. So
right, right.
that occurred to me as we
Oh,
were
there
going
you
through.
go.
No, but in honesty, so yeah, there's I think some good questions we wanted to cover. Um, Brian, so you mentioned you had a 30-minute call, and then you were really going in. What's your recommendation? Like, what should someone once they decide to go with MB Assist, like how long do you think they should kind of timeline in their head to like go from starting the implementation to like it actually being used by users within their organization?
Well, I think that really that depends on exactly what you're wanting to do with MBA Assist. If it's which group of audience are you wanting to approach? For example, with my admin, we'd looked at this since June. They were all gone. They came back. I was able to add them in the meeting.
Yep.
That it just wasn't a problem. I could add it was about 8 or 9 people overall, counselors, principals, and all. I just added them while they were in the meeting. And
Mhm.
then I could go over it with them real quick, showed them how to navigate. I think I extended the meeting 10 minutes, just to add them in and go. If it's something like our whole staff, like I've got a session, when our staff comes back to school, that I'll be going over the HR one, for example, with our entire district staff. Well, that's a lot more of a process of planning and incorporating things and supporting that. So it really kind of depends on the group that you're having, that you're
Mhm.
going to add, and the category involved, and then knowing your users on what you need. But I was able to add our principals and admins within, like I said, 10 minutes.
Yep.
And that was from start to finish. I didn't send the invites out until then because I knew they'd be asking me what they were. So
I gotcha. I gotcha. No, that yeah, and I think yeah, and I because a lot of our folks that join these types of webinars are very tech specific backgrounds. So thinking about implementing Assist, you're going to want quite a few months and things like that. So this really isn't a technology implementation piece. It's really what are your goals and your planning. That's where the time is going to be spent, not necessarily the software being set up and ready to roll.
right, you need to plan how you're going to get the documentation in there and who's going to be putting
Mhm.
it in there, and then how you maintain it.
Yep.
That's really the big part of it. But you know, Sherry mentioned the resources. When you pull up a link and it has those, these are the support documents for it.
Mhm.
And it'll take you right to the page where it pulled that information. Once the user starts seeing that, I think it really becomes a benefit. And we don't have any videos that we've posted yet, but I've seen it done where if you post a video, it takes you to the timestamp part in the video
Mhm.
where that information is, and that's nice.
Yo, that was huge, especially if you're doing, if you have one for PD, things like that, and
Hmm.
you are doing any recorded resources, it's huge for you. Um,
Yeah.
Sherry, I think two more questions. I'm gonna ask you the one, and then I think I've got the last one. But just talk to me a little bit. I think hit it with a one more point on replacing content. You've got your 25, 26 document. Well, rollover happens. Now we've got our 26, 27 document. Like delete, add. Like what's going to be best practice, and how what's that process look like when inevitably you have the new version and you need to get the old version out of there.
Yeah, yeah, great question. So definitely on your you have the ability to upload your own files, but if you connect into that OneDrive, that's going to save you time. In all you need to do is just refresh your information. So you'll add it to your Google Drive or your SharePoint, and then simply refresh the information. So go back out to that drive, look at that information, and now I have the new documents to be able to reference and resources to share. One thing that I wanted to show you as well, as we think about our documents and, what questions are staff asking, MB Assist also has the ability to share with you what are the questions that were asked over the last month, who asked those questions, and what responses were given for those questions. I can even look at those negative responses. So if I do have some negative responses, that might mean I need to add additional information, additional documentation into MB Assist. So what questions receive that negative response? And then, of course, we have some charting to go with that. But this could be very helpful in looking through what questions are being asked of the MBAssist. How can we better help our staff? Or if there were negative responses, what documents do we need to share with MBAssist to train it additionally? Or what information do we need to update?
So that's a great call out. Yeah, I think, yeah, because I mean, yeah, updating the information, updating your OneDrive and Google Drives and things like that, or just adding the new PDF and getting rid of the old one is one thing, but seeing where the gaps in documentation or resources are. If everyone's asking about, a certain topic and there's just no documentation, that really is that your roadmap for what needs to be kind of thought about and looked at and decided upon what the standard operating procedure is, so to speak.
Right.
And then last question, and I think, yeah, and Brian kind of spoke to this a little bit as well, but just the idea of having too many agents and kind of thinking about the ones that you want to have. Just to, I think, clarify, you can add a staff member to two different agents. So if Brian's team did say, okay, we want this for the athletic, leaders, the coaches, and then this for our staff, but if I was a history teacher and I was a soccer coach, I can be in both. If that's going to be what's best for me. So you do have the ability, kind of like Sherry was showing, to have the assistants that you're added to on that left-hand nav or you're within the system.
Correct.
Well, I believe that's all of our questions. I really appreciate everyone, answering the poll, kind of joining us today. I know it's always a busy time of year. So really appreciate, Brian, Sherry, appreciate you guys coming on, sharing your information, sharing your knowledge. And like I said, most of all, appreciate the attendees that took time out today. So we'll be following up, seeing what questions you have. If you're watching this recording, feel free to share it. We don't care. We put it on YouTube, things like that. But at the end of the day, just want to make sure we're helping schools and districts have a smoother experience and help staff get better support so they can get the answers they need and get on with their day, as opposed to waiting around or someone unfortunately having to answer the same question 20, 30 times a day. So Brian, really appreciate you, sir. And
You
looking
bet.
forward to, yeah, and if I'm in the area, I'll hopefully we can drive up to Kansas City and lunch at Joe's Barbecues on me next time I'm over there.
All right.
And Sherry, you're invited too.
All right.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. I'll go ahead and turn off our recording and end our webinar. But thanks so much, and y'all have a great day and a smooth back to school.